Com. The Maloof Warehouse Sale is back and better than ever. September 5th, 6th, and 7th. You can shop their warehouse sale online at maloofsale.com. No crowds, no traffic. Just savings of up to 90% on Italian leather furniture, cotton sheets, memory foam pillows, hybrid mattresses, and more. Shop online starting at 7 a.m. September 5th at maloofsale.com. That's MALOUFSALE.com. All sales final. Pickup will be at Maloof approximately 3 weeks after order. Orders cannot be shipped to personal addresses.
Hi, this is Chris Wilson of Wilson Motor Company. It's hard to believe it, but it's time for our Labor Day sales event. We have a great selection of over 110 new Fords and over 60 Nissans, all with closeout pricing. We have rebates up to $12,000 and rates as low as 0% for 72 months. Or we have over 135 pre-owned vehicles to choose from. Now is a great time to buy a new or pre-owned vehicle. Check out our inventory online at wilsonmotor.com. Hurry in, our Labor Day sales event ends September 3rd.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the Garden Guide on this Saturday morning. We'll feel right along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden, where we're talking all things lawn, garden, vegetables, fruit. It is definitely the time for harvesting.
It is. It is. So much fun to go out in the garden and just go pick stuff.
Yeah,
You just
and eat it right there.
Yeah, just kind of wander up and down the rows and go, I think I'll pick that tomato. Oh, the onions look good. I'll grab one of those. Oh, that looks good for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
It's like the best time of year to go out in the garden.
Someone was making fun of our dog because we've only had the dog for a year and a half. And last year we noticed that it would just pick a few raspberries off and just chew the raspberries off the vine or tomatoes.
Yep.
And they said, really? Your dog eats fruits and vegetables?
Yeah.
It's healthy? And we're like, well, I
yeah.
guess we don't feed it anything else.
They are omnivorous, so they'll eat a little bit of everything. So
yeah,
our dog likes tomatoes for sure.
They're delicious.
She'll eat the tomatoes and also have occasionally gotten the raspberries and strawberries for sure. And then they like the melons, like the cantaloupes when they're ripe. They'll eat the melons.
Yeah. Well, it's that time of year where we are harvesting a lot of squash, a lot of tomatoes.
Yeah, potatoes. Potatoes
beans,
are coming on like crazy.
And we've got lots of beans that are coming on. So we've got a lot to talk about. We aren't going to be able to take phone calls for today, but we're going to be just fielding a lot of questions that have come in this past week. So if you do have a question, comment for the show, of course, you can call those in next week. But we aren't able to take phone calls for.
Or you could just call the store. We can always answer questions right there at the store. So you're welcome to call in the store anytime.
And speaking of the store, cash sale going on this weekend.
Yeah. So cash sale continues, and we are selling a lot of trees and shrubs. So we don't have quite the selection we had a couple weeks ago, but right now, all the trees, shrubs, flowering trees, fruit trees, evergreens, they're all on sale, 40% off. And if you pay with cash, and you get an extra 10% off, so you get 50% off the regular prices right now. So shrubs, lots of really nice shrubs in stock, flowering shrubs. I've got some hydrangeas. We've got potentilla. We've got a whole bunch of different things. But then really great selection of trees still. Yeah.
Okay.
So 40% off if you pay with a credit card or with a check or a debit card. But if you pay with cash, you get that extra 10%, get 50% off.
Okay.
Yeah, really, really good time to come in and take advantage of that. And we just got garlic in, and tulip bulbs and daffodils and hyacinths are coming. So it's like we're transitioning into that fall season.
Yeah. It's been a few weeks since we talked garlic.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's nice is that as a lot of plants are starting to die off, garlic is a great thing to.
That's when you plant it. Yeah,
put it in its place.
Yeah, we don't put in the garlic. So right now we have about 20 varieties of garlic in stock. and there's soft neck and hard neck varieties, and they are both very, very good. Great flavor on a lot of these varieties that we have, and some keep a little bit better than others. So the soft neck garlics, they're the varieties that you can braid the stems. So you take the stems and you dry them, and you can like actually braid them together and store them. They will store longer than your hard neck varieties. So the soft neck varieties will store anywhere between 4 to 8 months. You can get really good storage out of those. They won't deteriorate. I think my favorite variety of soft neck would be Rosa di Sulmona. Is really good. That's an Italian variety. It's really, really flavorful, but it's got really great storage ability as well too. So the Rosa di Sulmona is great. We've got a couple others that are really nice varieties of soft necks, but I kind of like the hard necks even better because they have richer flavor. They don't keep quite as well as the soft necks, but they still keep well. So we're talking 2 to 4 months on the hard necks is about how long they're going to keep, and the soft necks are 4 to 8, so they're almost like double what the hard necks are. But the hard necks tend to have richer flavor. They've got a little bit more robust flavor out of them too. I wouldn't say they're spicier, maybe some are, but they tend to have a richer, deeper flavor to them. They're great for roasting and cooking and all kinds of different things. Probably my favorites on the hard necks would be Susan Delafield. I really like Susan Delafield. Music is really good too. German red. I like the German red. That's quite tasty. But we have tons of varieties. So there's Ukraine, there's Romanian. We've got a new one that we brought in last year. It's called Montana. That's really, really good. That's a really nice new variety. So a lot of good ones to try. If you've never tried different types of garlic, it's fun to try. It's fun to try something different.
I was going to say, you don't even have to plant it. You can just try it.
You can just take it home and eat it.
Yeah.
I've been taking cloves home, and we've been roasting some. We've been making some pasta sauce, and just all kinds of good stuff with that garlic. But now's the time to plant it. So you want to take those cloves and break them up so that there's individual cloves, like little small cloves instead of like the whole head.
So you break up the bulb into the individual
break up the head
cloves.
into the individual cloves. And then you're going to plant them about 4 inches deep and 6 to 8 inches apart. And we recommend slow release fertilizer in there with them. Definitely want to use a root stimulator, mycorrhiza type product, like either the Kanga Roots would be excellent. We've got Kanga Roots is awesome because it's liquid. You can just mix it up and water your plants with it. A lot of my growers will do bone meal or other bulb type foods, so like a Dutch bulb food, or the bone meal is really good for the bulbs as well too. But we've been experimenting more with some of the mycorrhiza products, and that's what's in the Kanga Roots. So it just really makes those root systems go like crazy. So I'm excited to try the Bigfoot, which we talked about on the show a little bit this year. I've got some Bigfoot. We're going to try it with our garlic and see how the production is on it for next year. But I'll tell you what, my potatoes are producing double. My cucumbers just have produced like crazy all summer long. We use the Bigfoot on that. And my tomatoes are just going nuts right now. I mean, we're getting a bushel off of each plant.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Bigfoot it's been amazing. Yeah, I've been really, really impressed with it. So we love the Kanga Roots. We still use the Kanga Roots, but if you can supplement your plants with a little bit of the Bigfoot, just like right when you plant, amazing.
Great results.
Amazing.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a lot of Bigfoot in the store next year. So yeah.
And then once you've got them planted, how long does it usually take before it starts to come up? And
great question. Yeah, great question. So once you get those planted, you want to water them thoroughly so the soil's like saturated, and then you don't have to water them like a lot, but we'll probably try and hit ours every week to 10 days or so. And since they're 4 inches down, they don't dry out really fast. And so it can go a week or 10 days or even 2 weeks without water because the soil's retaining the moisture down deeper. And so it's not going to dry out as fast as like it does on the surface. Because if you water today, by tomorrow, the surface is going to be kind of dry if you get a warm day. But down 4 inches, that moisture is still there. So you don't have to water too frequently. And it is not unusual for the garlic to come up this fall before we get snow. And so you'll see like the little leaves just starting to pop up, and sometimes they'll get a couple inches tall before winter really sets in. that's just fine. Yeah, won't bother the garlic at all. It's like
Can bury it.
not a big deal. Yeah,
Okay.
you can just like let it do its thing. It's super hardy, very low maintenance. You don't have to do a whole lot with it, but it is really critical when you're planting to make sure you get a good balanced fertilizer out there. You want loose soil as well too. So I'd recommend, if you can, till or cultivate or turn that soil over where you're going to plant the garlic.
Really break it up.
Break it up, yeah, and then amend that soil with some nice soil amendment, like a soil conditioner, compost of some sort, even composted manures would be great. Work that into the soil. We want that soil loose and light and fluffy, and then put your, sometimes I'll even dig a trench. I'll just like dig a 4 or 6 inch deep trench, and then I'll put the fertilizer right down on the bottom. I'll put my garlic bulbs in there. I'll water them with the kangaroos or with the Bigfoot, and get that right in contact with the cloves when you're planting them, and then cover them up, and then I'll water them again, but I'll use like a soaker hose after that and just let it soak in really good. And then I'll only water every 7 to 10 days, every 14 once we start getting into fall, and definitely not unusual for those little cloves to shoot greenery up this fall.
Starred.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. It's all good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right. So garlic's in stock.
Yeah.
Bulbs.
Great
coming
varieties.
in.
Yeah, great varieties of garlic. And then probably over the next 2 or 3 weeks, all of our fall bulbs will show up, because they don't all come from the same place. So usually we'll start the week after Labor Day. Some of the bulbs will start showing up, and if they show up earlier, that's great. We'll take them. But most of the time it's between the 10th and the 20th of September that they all really start showing up. So if some of them show, that's great. We'll take them. But tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, crocus, allium, all those fall planted bulbs. And every spring we always have people come in. They're like, "Oh, my neighbor's tulips look so great. Can I plant those right now?" It's like, no.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the fall.
Yeah.
Put on your calendar, go see Anderson's in September, and so then they come back in September, get the bulbs, and then get those planted. So those are rolling in, and all our bulbs come from Holland. We don't do any of the domestic ones. Domestic bulbs are great, but the ones that come from Holland are
amazing.
They're just bar none. They're the best. They'll
Yeah.
be bigger, and the bigger the bulb, the larger the flowers, and the more flowers you get off the bulbs. And so we always bring ours in from Holland, and we'll have 65 different kinds of tulips to choose from, and probably 15 or 20 types of daffodils, and 10 or 15 kinds of hyacinths, and 6 varieties of crocus, just a lot of different ones to choose from. And the great thing about fall planted bulbs is they're just super easy. You just dig a hole, throw a little fertilizer in the hole, put your bulb in there, cover it up, water it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now you really can't mess it up.
It's that easy.
It's that easy. Yeah, even if you plant them upside down, they'll just like find their way up.
and even in our case, the holiday bulbs that you guys do.
Oh, the amaryllis.
Yes. That has become just the go-to gift for us when we're going to any sort of a family function or a dinner party. You want to take something. One of those bulbs is so much fun because you can just water it, and then you just kind of watch it. And from about Thanksgiving to Christmas, it takes off, and you just never know when it's going to start to explode.
They're so much fun to grow, and we've got some new colors coming this year. So I've got 2 or 3 brand new colors, very different amaryllis. It'll be really fun to see what those look like. So you see them in the catalog, and you go, "That's really cool." But I always like to grow them to see what it really looks like.
Right?
Yeah, because the pictures never quite do them justice. So excited for a few new varieties. Those will start showing up the first week of October.
Okay.
So they're a little bit slower coming. They usually show up about a month after the regular like fall planted bulbs.
All right.
So amaryllis will be coming, and we have some gorgeous new varieties. And then last year we had a hard time getting red pearl, which is one of my favorite varieties. I've got plenty of red pearl this year.
They're coming in.
Yeah, so
good.
if you're listening and you missed out on the red pearl last year, this year I'll have them back again, and they're gorgeous. They're different from your standard amaryllis, not in the color itself, because it's a really deep red color. It's like almost burgundy red. It's a dark red. But most amaryllis, the flowers are, I would say, velvety looking. Like the petals look kind of velvety. They're kind of soft and have like a little texture to them. And so it looks like velvet. But the red pearl is a smooth like pedal to it, and it's more glossy, and so it's a glossy, smooth look instead of a velvety, textured look to it, and so they really look different from the other amaryllis, and the color's just like vibrant, this vibrant dark red. So they're so pretty. I think it's
kind of almost shimmers a little bit.
it's kind of my it's kind of my favorite bulb. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really pretty. So red pearl is going to be back in stock, and then we've got 2 or 3, and I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but 2 or 3 brand new varieties with some really unique colors.
All right.
Yeah, should be fun.
Well, and we don't want to talk about it, but the reality is that we are going to be hitting fall soon, and Anderson Seed and Garden will be transitioning.
Yeah, make that transition into the holiday season. So we've already started, and I've got people that come in, they're like, you started on it already. And it's like, well, yeah. Takes 2 months.
Yeah, it's a huge process.
Takes us 2 months, yeah. And then our holiday season is so short. Even if we start at the 1st of November, right after Halloween, and we really get the store decorated for the holidays, we only have about 4 or 5 weeks to sell holiday and Christmas stuff. Because by the 10th of December, if you haven't decorated your house, you're not going to.
Then.
Yeah, it's just not going to do it. So we only have about 4 weeks, 5 weeks max to sell the holiday stuff. So we have to start early. Yeah, so that the day after Halloween, all the Halloween stuff disappears, and it's like, we're right into the holidays. And it seems early, but it's crazy. People love to decorate, and they love to plan in advance for it. And so you can come in early and start planning, and then when you get ready to decorate, then you already know what Anderson's has to add to what you've got already. If you want to say, I've had those for 10 years, I'm ready for something different, just do something brand new. So, yeah.
Speaking of things different, you were telling me a couple weeks ago that you got some new lights.
Yes,
that are going to be.
Yeah, they haven't arrived yet, but we're hoping they get here right before Halloween, and they are programmable, and they're mini LEDs, so they look just like the regular lights you would put on your tree. So if you've been putting mini lights on your tree for decades, they will look just like your regular incandescent, warm, clear mini lights, but they're LEDs instead. And so we've checked the temperature, like the color of the lights, and they're just like almost spot on perfect with an incandescent bulb, but they're LEDs, and so they don't ever burn out. They just go and go and go, and they use so much less electricity. They use about 1/10 of the electricity that you would with a regular incandescent light bulb. So they use much, much less electricity. But the cool thing about these is they are programmable for different colors. And so once you put them on your tree or on your wreath or on your garland, up to about 500 lights, you can string 500 lights together in one section. And you can turn them all red. You can turn them all blue. You can turn them all green if you want. And then we've got some other combinations mixed in. We've got a nice multicolor combo that will go with it. We call it our Christmas multi, but it's got clear and red and green lights all mixed together. And then we've also got, you can do pink, you can do purple, you can do orange, you can do kind of teal or lavender. There's like a whole bunch of different colors mixed in there. So we've got a Halloween combo, which is orange and purple. We've got Valentine's combo, which is red and white. We've got kind of a St. Patrick's combo, which is green and white as well too. So you can reprogram these lights to do all these different color combinations, as well as solid colors, as well as your just warm clear. So basically you can buy one set of lights and produce every single color that you would ever want,
and really leave them up all year
round. Yeah, so they're not just Christmas lights now; they're like holiday and event lighting, because we can do just all these different color combinations, and it will chase. So like it has different functions as well too. So you can have the lights chase back and forth. You can have them kind of fade in and fade out, and so I think there's 8 functions and 16 color combinations that they will do, and you can control it with a remote control. It's just an infrared remote control, so you can just just change it on demand. And then they have timers built in, so you've got a 2-hour, a 4-hour, and a 6-hour timer. So if you're gonna take off and go to dinner, you can just like set the timer to turn off at 4 hours after the time that you turn it on. They'll stay on for 4 hours, and then boom, turn off.
Or if you want to keep them on each night, but don't want them going past midnight,
you can have them start at, say, like 6 o'clock, stay on until midnight, turn off, and the next day they'll turn right back on at 6 o'clock and then turn off at midnight. Just do it all over again. So, yeah, we're super excited about it. We wish we could get them to go longer lengths because we want to do them on some of our bigger Christmas trees as well, too. So some of those trees we put 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 lights on. But as of right now, we can link 500 together. So if you're doing a Christmas tree, you'd be able to link, you'd be able to do each section of your tree independently and have those lights on there. You could change the colors, but I don't think you'd be able to get the functions to like coordinate with each other since you're doing like 3.
Especially if you're doing like a chase.
Yeah, if you're trying
like
to chase them, they're not going to be synchronized perfectly because each section of the tree is going to be different. But if you want to do all the colors and say, I think tonight I'll do like multicolor, you could just go, click, 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 and you'd have each of the 3 sections of your tree all the same color. Yeah, but then if you started to do the functions, they might be off sync a little bit, so they wouldn't. I mean, they'd still work, but they might not fade in and out at exactly the same time as the other sets. But yeah, so we're pretty darn excited. That's all I can say is because we've been working on this for like many years, and we've been kind of working the bugs out of it, and we finally found a manufacturer that could do it for us and basically do all the functions that we asked them to do. So it's like, this is awesome. They're waterproof. They're shatterproof. You can step on them. You can run them over with your car. You can submerge them in your hot tub.
Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want the power source in the hot tub, of course, but the lights themselves,
if they get wet.
There's a transformer in there, controls all the electricity. If there's a short in there, it just shuts it off. So it's pretty cool. So they are great for outdoors because they are waterproof and so durable that they don't break. The wires are thinner, and so they're not as noticeable. They don't stand out on the tree as much because you've got these smaller wires. They're easier to hide on the trees. So we are super excited. They're called Link Lights, and these are called Link Light colors because they produce all the colors.
Okay.
So we're way excited about these lights.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk more about holidays as we get closer to the holidays.
It is a little early since it is still August, but
because let's be honest, it's still going to be 90 degrees this afternoon.
I know, how rude.
And although we started to feel a little fall coming on this past week, and it got me thinking, this is the great time of year for me because my lawn finally starts to green up again, and I always say that spring is my favorite time because my lawn looks as good as everybody else's. This is the time of year, it's the second best time for me because, things start to finally green up a little bit, and so it's probably about that time to start thinking about
cooler weather,
taking care of your lawn.
Cooler weather the last week or so has been great, and those little thunder showers that have snuck through have really helped as well too. But just cooling down for a week was great because a lot of our customers were able to spray for weeds because the temperatures were a little bit cooler. Great time to throw some fertilizer and some humate on to kind of perk the lawn back up after a hot, dry summer. And so it's a perfect time to fertilize. Like our fourth or fifth step in our lawn care program is like Labor Day. It's like this weekend.
So
this is like it. Yeah. So this is the time to do it. So if you have not fertilized since like July or for some people, it's even like June or late May that they did their last fertilization. Now is the time to put the fertilizer on to really get your lawn perked back up and looking good because it does take a beating through the summertime. And so an application of humate to get it to recover, application of a slow release nitrogen with some iron in there, get a good rainstorm, water it in, maybe a little bit of both. And then in a week or 10 days, your lawn's going to like look amazing. It'll just come right back out of it. And high 80s, low 90s, great for this time of year. But by the end of September, we're going to be like 70s, like consistently, and it's going to be, it's going to feel so good.
And as we transition into September, end of September, October, that's really the time when you want to start looking at aerating the lawn.
Yeah. So if your lawn's feeling a little hard, like compacted, aerating between now and the end of October, first part of November, really great time to do that, especially if you're going to fertilize. So you could aerate right now and then throw your humate and your fertilizer on, and then that nutrient's going to get deeper into the soil where those plugs are pulled out. It'll get deeper into the soil and encourages a lot of root system, a lot of root growth. So the roots will fill back in those holes, and it's a great way to encourage your grass to kind of spread some more than it has already. It'll fill in those gaps. You get a little bit of air, a little bit of water, nutrient down in there. Just really makes the grass go like crazy. So aerating this time of year would be excellent. In fact, fall is the best time to aerate. We just kind of all got in the habit of aerating in the spring because that's when the Boy Scouts would go out and do the fundraiser for the summer activities, and they usually don't do a whole lot of fundraisers for the winter activities, so they don't go out and aerate in the fall. They just do it in the springtime. But fall's actually the best time to aerate your turf. Much better. And it's a really good time to put new grass seed on it. So probably not next week, but the week after, I'll probably have Doug with the Gronotech seed come in. We'll talk grass seed again. So this is the time to plant new grass, but also a really good time to overseed your lawn and get some new varieties coming up in your older grass and maybe rejuvenate, get some varieties that resist insects and disease and are more drought resistant right now. So really good time to overseed.
All right. Yeah. Well, we're hitting the bottom of the hour here in just a minute. We've got a lot more to talk about. In fact, a lot of the things we were teasing at the top of the hour, we want to talk about harvesting melons. We talked about onions last week, but we can double back and talk about that. And potatoes. Yeah,
potatoes and squashes. Want to make sure we get those harvested and stored properly.
Yeah, so a lot more to talk about, and it's all coming up next here on The Garden Guide on KVNU.
Walter, KBNU News. The 4th annual Ignite the Light event will be held Saturday, September 7th from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Cache County Fairgrounds in Logan. It might seem strange to pair suicide prevention with fun and festival, but on KBNU's For the People program on Wednesday, Fairgrounds manager Bart Esplin said that's the point, to get people thinking and talking about suicide prevention differently. The evening includes a motivational speech by a Utah man, Mike Schloppy.
Several years ago, I believe it was in the 80s, he suffered a gunshot wound accidentally at the hands of someone else, and has been paralyzed ever since then. And as he speaks, people will learn his story and his positive attitude and all the things that he's gone on to do and what he has become over the years. And it's simply an amazing story.
Musical performances, too, by Seize the Night Records and also Cole Hartley. You can find out more information at cachecounty.gov/ignite the light. Attorneys for the man charged in the stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students had experts outline widespread media coverage of the case and explain the effects on potential jurors during a hearing this past Thursday. Brian Kohberger's defense team wants the trial set for 2025 moved from Moscow to Boise or another larger Idaho city because they say it's the only way he will get a fair trial. Over the weekend, smoky and sunny and hot, around 90 on Saturday. Hopefully less smoke Sunday, but still hot, around 92 for the high. Get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
Gym basketball, we kick it off with the season opener for Oklahoma.
47 seconds. Arnold sends Bauer Sharp in motion. Now he goes back right, snap, rolling right. Arnold looking to throw, pulls it down, throws late, end zone, caught! Touchdown! Touchdown, Oklahoma! It's Deion Burks again. He's got the trifecta.
As heard from Toby Rowland, Learfield, Jackson Arnold, 4 scoring strikes, 3 to Deion Burks. Number 16, Oklahoma routs Temple 51-3 in the season opener for both. From baseball, Orlando Arcia, a pair of home runs, Braves 7-2 over the Phillies. They move within 5 games of division leading Philadelphia. 27 games left to play. Framber Valdez, 7 no-hit frames. Jose Altuve, the walk-off winner. Astros 3-2 2 over the Royals. Shohei Ohtani, his 43rd home run, and that wound up as a game winner, 10-9, L.A. over Arizona. They have a 5-game lead in the West, though Clayton Kershaw suffered a toe injury, could be headed for the injured list. Austin Wells, a pair of home runs as the Yankees double the Cardinals 6-3. O's keep pace, 5-3 winners over the Rockies. The Guardians outslug the Pirates 10-8, while Manny Machado hits a 3-run shot. Padres take the Rays 13-5. Defending champ Novak Djokovic has lost at the U.S. Open a night after Carlos Alcaraz went out. Djokovic bowed out in the third round, 4 sets to Alexei Popyrin of Australia. He finishes the year without claiming at least one championship for the first time since 2017. Caitlin Clark had a career-high 31 points to go with a dozen assists in a regular season finale matchup against Angel Reese, leading the Fever to a dominant 100-81 win over the Chicago Sky. And tremendously sad news from the NHL. Johnny Gaudreau of the Columbus Blue Jackets and his brother Matthew were killed after being struck by a car riding their bicycles in New Jersey.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Blake Moore here. As I've listened to your concerns during my town halls and meetings throughout the district, one thing is clear. Utahns are concerned about border security. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the Biden administration's policies have allowed nearly 10 million encounters nationwide, including over 8 million at the southern border, more than ever before in American history. Record amounts of fentanyl have come through our borders and led to heartbreaking outcomes for families who have lost loved ones to overdoses. For the sake of our community's safety and national security, something must change. This is why House Republicans swiftly passed the Secure the Border Act to strengthen our southern border with new technologies, increase the number of Border Patrol agents, end catch and release, and require transparency from the Department of Homeland Security. I will keep fighting to make 1st District communities safer, and I encourage you to sign up for my weekly e-newsletter and follow me on social media at Rep. Blake Moore to stay updated on my efforts. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
It's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU. Will Feel Right along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden on a beautiful Saturday morning as we're looking at temperatures to be in the high 80s, low 90s through the Labor Day weekend.
That's better than 100.
Yeah.
So much better.
Not quite as cool as last week, but last week we were talking about how much we were going to enjoy the 70s, but the wind came up.
It was like brutal.
Yeah,
it's like a Saturday at the Music Fest. Like people's canopies were just like blowing off the street. Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
I was talking to one of the vendors, and she was standing there under her tent with her arm up above her, holding the tent down. And I said, "Have you been doing that all day?" She's like, "Yes, I have not moved at all."
Yeah. We put a couple cinder blocks on each leg on our canopy, and we had no problem. But I think it kind of tore the canopy part.
Yeah,
so
the wind was pretty brutal.
Remember last year, Labor Day, we had that hailstorm that just like took out everybody's stuff last year.
And that's what put my parents on edge, because when the storm started to come in Saturday night, my dad was like, "Have you heard anything about hail? Have you heard anything about hail?" Because he was so worried about losing his crop.
It shredded my corn last year, and it like finished off all my squashes and melons and pumpkins and everything. They were just like, they were done.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no leaves left on them. They were just all gone.
So we didn't have that, and now we've got temperatures back in the 90s. But over the next week to 2 weeks, we're going to see temperatures settling back into the 80s.
Which will be great. And so good time for being outside, enjoying harvesting the garden. Plants are going to be producing really, really well, especially with warmer temperatures are good for like the tomatoes and the peppers because they all have come on just a little late this year. They're really ripening up and going like crazy. So little warm temperature for the first week or two of September won't be all bad because we could use a little more maturity out of those plants.
Now, when it comes to ripening tomatoes, you've said before, what is your secret to getting them ripened?
Get them to ripen,
Because if you've got a lot of green tomatoes,
we don't want a lot of green tomatoes. We want a lot of ripe tomatoes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is what we do. First part of August, I stop fertilizing, so I'm not fertilizing them anymore, so don't fertilize the tomatoes anymore. And then I start stressing them just a little bit with water. So instead of watering every 3 or 4 days, I start pushing it every 5 or 6 days so that they kind of wilt just a little bit in between waterings. Makes them feel like they're not invincible anymore, and so they have to ripen up some fruit to reproduce themselves. So we're starting to stress those tomatoes just a little bit to get them to ripen. And then there's a lot of excess foliage on most plants, especially on mine. They're like really big and leafy and green this year. You can trim some of that excess foliage back so the sunlight gets into the tomatoes a little bit better, and that's going to help ripen those up. And then as we start to get cooler nighttime temperatures, right now we're good. We're getting nighttime temperatures in the 50s, but when we start hitting into the low 40s and even into the 30s at night, then the tomatoes are going to slow down. They're not going to ripen as fast, and so you want to do something to cover the tomatoes to retain that heat at night. And so for our gardeners and our customers that come in that are struggling to get their fruit to ripen up, we'll sell them frost cloth to put over the tomatoes, even though it's not freezing, but it's going to hold the heat at night so that it doesn't escape as quickly, and then the tomatoes will ripen up faster. So usually the first part of September, we recommend, hey, start covering those tomatoes in the late afternoon, and then it's going to generate some extra heat. It'll ripen the tomatoes up, but then it's going to hold that heat longer at night so your plants don't get cold.
Trap it,
and then they're gonna ripen up even faster. So then you take it off in the morning, let it heat up again, and then cover them up in the late afternoon, and then it's just gonna retain that heat. So you'll get your tomatoes to ripen up much faster.
Great.
So less water, no fertilizer, prune a little bit, and then cover them at night.
All right.
Yeah, cover them at night to help retain that heat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to squashes, a lot of those squashes, you always wonder, okay, when's the right time to pick them?
Are they ready?
And are they ready to be picked? And then how can I preserve them as long as possible?
And the squash all mature at different times. And so they don't set all their fruit at once. And so right now on, like, say, my butternut squash, I'm looking at my butternut, and they've kind of grown into my cantaloupes. And I'm like going through my cantaloupes to like find the ripe ones. And there's like a ripe butternut squash right there, because they've kind of snuck in there, and it's same color as a stupid cantaloupe. So it's like I'm going for a cantaloupe. It's like, oh, dang it, it's a butternut squash. All right. I almost need to flag them so I don't forget where they're at. But anyway, there's a bunch on there that are still green that aren't even close to being ripe yet, and so you can leave the ripe ones just out there on the vine. That's fine. Once they ripen, they're not really going to progress any further, and they really won't deteriorate as long as they're attached to the vine as well too. So you can just like leave them out there. So on my butternut squash plants, I've got some that are fully ripe, some that are not quite ripe, and some that are pretty darn green still.
And you're just leaving them all.
And that's okay. Yeah, we're just going to leave them all. And so I will leave those fruit attached to the vine until we get our first light frost. And first light frost usually hits between 20th of September and 20th of October. So you got like kind of a month in there. Last year, I think our first frost was really close to the 20th of October. It was really, really late for our first frost. But there were parts of the valley last year that got hit the first part of September, with frost. So you just never know. But if you can protect those plants and we don't get a frost until the first part of October, that's great, because they'll just mature and mature and mature for the next month. But when we get that first light frost, and when I say light frost, that's 29 and above. So just a few degrees below freezing, that's going to be a light frost. It'll kill the vines, but it won't damage the fruit. And then I go out there with my pruner and I'll cut the fruits off, and I'll leave about 2 or 3 inches of stem left on the fruit, and I'll cut them off with a nice pruner, so it's a good, clean, easy cut. Chop those off, and then I'll put them on my wheelbarrow, and I'll take them up into the barn for storage. But if we get a hard frost, and sometimes if it doesn't freeze the latter part of September, first part of October, we get our first frost the middle of October, then it's going to be below 29 degrees. So if it's 28, 26, 24, it's cold enough that it could damage the fruit. And so when that happens, and I'm watching the news, and it looks like it's going to freeze, and it's like, okay, what's our low temperature going to be? If it looks like it's going to be mid-20s, I will go harvest the fruit before it freezes.
Okay.
Like the day before. So if I'm watching the news and it's like, oh crap, Saturday it's going to like drop into the mid-20s. Before Saturday, I'll go out there and I will cut all of the fruit off the vines, just like I do when there's a light frost. And I'll leave 2 or 3 inches of stem, and I'll just cut them off the vine before the vines are dead, and put them in the wheelbarrow and take them up in the barn for storage. So light frost, leave them out. Hard frost,
Bring them in.
Yeah, bring them in.
Okay.
And so then once you harvest those, I will take them to the barn or the shed or the garage. You want somewhere that is warm, dry, dark. So we want a warm, dry, dark location. And if they're sitting on concrete or asphalt, put something underneath them to just kind of cushion them just a little bit, whether it's a crate or a pallet. You can do that to get the good air circulation around them.
So a garage does work.
Garage would work great
if you don't have the barn.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just want it to be dry and kind of warm and where the sun doesn't shine right on the fruit, so it won't damage them. And I'll leave them there for a month to 6 weeks. So in a month to 6 weeks, even the fruit that haven't ripened, they'll kind of ripen up,
mature
and
a little bit.
Yeah, and then you'll get that nice firm outer skin and color. So we're looking for butternut squash should be a buckskin tan color. Hubbard should be a dark green. Sweet meat should be a really dark bluish silver color. Banana squash should be kind of pink. And when you get that nice mature color on those fruits, then you can scratch the skin like with your thumbnail. Just kind of take your thumbnail and just kind of drag it along the skin. And if it's really, really hard and it doesn't leave hardly an indentation, they are perfectly done and ready to go. But if you scratch them and a little bit of moisture bubbles up, then they're not cured quite properly yet. So,
and you need to keep them.
we want them to cure properly and get that nice hard outer skin on them. But once they've cured for 4 to 6 weeks and it starts getting cold, you want to make sure you get them out of the garage or out of the barn or the shed or whatever. If it's going to freeze in there, it's going to damage your fruit. So last year we left them a little bit longer than I should have, and we had probably 30% that got frozen in November when it turned really, really cold, and I was kicking myself because I wasted a bunch of fruit because they got frozen. So make sure you bring those in before it freezes also, and then put them in your storage location. So if that's in your cellar or in your basement or in your fruit room or whatever, we want the temperature to be between 38 and 50 degrees.
Okay.
36 is fine, 36 to 50 degrees is great. We just don't want them to freeze, and we don't want them to get too warm.
Too hot.
Yeah, and then they will last for months. I mean, literally, banana squash, butternut squash, sweet meats, Hubbards. Sorry. They'll last for 4 to 6 months. Easy.
So the only really problem you have is when it does come time to cook them, you need a chainsaw to cut into them.
Yep, an axe or a sledgehammer or something.
My wife always jokes. She's like, "Yeah, you just need to buy me a buck saw when it comes time to cut these things
cut those suckers open because they'll last for months." So last year, I think it was about March when some of our squashes finally started to deteriorate a little bit. So they went from November, December, January, February, March 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
No problem. Some of them last even longer. So I've had customers come in, they're still eating their winter squash in May.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not too bad. But it all depends on how you harvest, cure, and store.
Yeah.
So if you do that with your winter squashes, they'll keep for a long time. But if you don't harvest them right, or if they get a little bit of damage while you're harvesting and the skin gets cut or scraped or something, those are the ones you want to eat first because they won't keep as long.
Because they will, yeah.
Yeah, so when we're harvesting, I'm really careful to gather those up and not toss them or throw them or bounce them on the ground or anything, because if they get a little bit of damage, they get bruised or cut into, those are the ones that are going to deteriorate first. And so those are the ones that I go, okay, those need to be separated from these because we're going to eat these
sooner,
first, because they're not going to last very long. And I think when I was a kid, we'd go out there and we'd dig up potatoes to store. And I think my dad would spear the potatoes on purpose because he'd set those aside. We're going to have to eat those.
Those
tonight.
are going to be for tonight.
Darn it, we're going to have to eat that one tonight.
And you bring up a good point, because storing potatoes is very similar.
It's similar,
but just not as long.
But different, yeah, but different. So this is a hard thing to get through people's minds, because a lot of people who live in Cache Valley grew up in southern Idaho, and southern Idaho potato harvest is always the first weekend of October. It's like if you grew up in Idaho, and I got a bunch of friends that grew up in Idaho, they'd always get off school for like a week to go do the potato harvest. It's not in September. It's in October. It's in October. And so we have so many customers that come in that grew up doing that, and they think that they need to wait until October to harvest their potatoes. Well, the Idaho russets and the specific varieties of russets they grow in Idaho aren't ready until October. But our potatoes are ready right now.
Especially reds. And some
they're
of the
ready
others.
right now. They are 30 days earlier than your standard russet potatoes. So people get that stuck in their head, and they're like, oh, I got to leave them. I'm going to leave them in all through September, and I'm going to harvest them in October. Now is the time to harvest your potatoes. So when there's good weather and we're not going to have rain for a couple days, just go out there and dig all your potatoes up in the next week or 10 days. We want to do it the first part of September. So get out there, dig your potatoes up, and I will I'll just go through and I'll just dig all the rows up, so I can just do it all at once, and they'll kind of sit out there for a little bit, and the sun will hit them, and they'll just dry just a tiny bit in the half an hour, however long it takes me to dig all the potatoes up. And then I'll go and I'll just kind of rub them with my gloved hands and just get the excess dirt off of them, and then we'll just like put them in the wheelbarrow, or they'll just go right into the burlap bags or whatever, and then they go directly into storage from there.
Okay.
Don't leave them out. If they sit in the sun for too long, they'll turn green. So we don't want that to happen. And they don't need curing time. They can just go straight directly to storage location, that 36 to 50 degree temperatures, and put them in burlap sacks because it kind of wicks the excess moisture off of them. And they just go right into storage.
And dark.
Dark.
The thing is with potatoes,
dark,
is if there's a place you can put them where they get no light whatsoever,
no sun. Yeah, no
and
sun.
even fluorescent lights can cause them
affect
to
them.
green up.
Yep,
So
yep. So dark and even slightly humid is good. They like a little more humid than, like, say, the squashes and the onions do.
Yeah.
But dark. But don't let them go too long, because what happens with your potatoes, if you leave them in the ground during September, the potatoes will start to cure in the ground and they'll harden off. And once they harden off, they have sections of the potato that is no longer very elastic. It doesn't expand properly. And so as your potatoes get moisture in September, which is going to happen, we're going to have storms that come through. We're going to have big rainstorms. Potatoes are going to start to grow again. They don't grow evenly because parts of the potato have started to cure. And so you get these knobs that grow on the potatoes, because this section is still flexible enough to grow, but this section over here is not.
Can't grow.
Yeah, and so you get these knobby looking potatoes, and I mean, they're edible. There's nothing wrong with them. They're harder to peel, but it's not going to hurt them, but it deforms your potatoes because they've started to cure, they've started to harden off, and they should have been harvested a couple weeks prior.
And in some cases, like what we've seen, is the plants start to die off.
Yeah.
And if the plants are dying off, you've got to get them out of the ground.
Then they start to grow again.
back.
Yeah, they start to grow again. So my plants are all died down. So this week we're digging up the potatoos. Yeah, all potatoes are getting dug up, and we're doing the same thing with the onions too. So with the potatoes, dig them up in the next week or 10 days, dust them off, burlap sacks, and we've got burlap sacks and mesh storage bags at the store. They're like $1 a piece. They're like, they're cheap. Yeah. So expensive you won't be able to afford one is what we say when people come in to buy those. But I've got burlap sacks, and I've got the mesh bags for the onions as well too. And get those harvested, put them in cool, dry, dark.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit of moisture for the potatoes is fine, but don't store them with your fruits. The fruits will make them deteriorate faster. And so vegetables need to be stored separately from your fruits, because the fruits create, what would we decide? Ethylene.
Yes.
Gas.
That
and it speeds up the decomposition of the other fruits. So we don't want that.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely don't want that. If you want your tomatoes to ripen, then you want them with it, because
put them right next to
they'll ripen
some
up.
bananas.
Yeah, they'll ripen
peaches.
up. But otherwise they won't.
Okay.
Onions, on the other hand, we're going to store almost exactly like the winter squash. So my onions, the tops have all died down. What I'll do is I'll go out there this next week, and I'll dig the onions up and I'll turn them upside down so that the root system is exposed. And so when the root system is exposed, the sunlight hits it, it kind of dries up the roots on the bottom, and it stops the growth of the onion, so it's not going to grow anymore. We leave the tops on them, but I'll leave them outside in the ground for a day or two just to let the bottoms dry. And then I'll go gather all the onions up, and then I'll put them in that same warm, dry location, dark, that we put the squashes in, and we'll let them cure for about the same amount of time, about 4 to 6 weeks. And once the onions have cured, then they have a nice firm outer wrapper skin. So if they're yellow, they're going to have a nice dark yellow wrapper skin. If they're white, they're going to have a white skin. If they're red, they're going to have a red skin. But it's dry compared to the rest of the onion, and then that helps them store better. And we're going to do the same thing. If you dig the onions up and you accidentally skewer one or damage it or break the skin or whatever, set that in the I'm going to eat soon pile compared to the need to store pile. And so we'll always, anything that looks like it's got cut or bumped or damaged goes in the eat sooner. And then we'll let them cure for that 4 to 6 weeks. And then I've got the onion sacks at the store, also $1 a piece.
Yeah.
And then you just like cut the tops off, put the onions in the sacks, and then hang them up in your storage location so there's good air circulation around them. And I don't fill the bags all the way. I fill them about maybe half so that they don't get compacted together too much.
And bruise the ones that are on the bottom.
And then they just have better air circulation that way as well, too. And it's okay to put different size onions in there so that you don't have that uniformity, so you still get better air circulation in around them. So they don't all have to be like the same. I'm going to put the ones that are, softball size in this bag, and you can mix them. It's whatever. Whatever works for you is great. But then we put them in that cool, dry storage location, and many of the onions will store for 4 months without any trouble. And if you did a variety like Patterson or Copra, they'll last 8 to 10 months.
Okay.
Yeah, you harvest those in October, and they'll last until May or June.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll last for that long. It's amazing. They're incredible storage onions. So,
all right.
Yeah, good way to do that.
While we're harvesting some, meanwhile, some of our other plants, we're just trying to keep them going, and there's still a lot of bugs and diseases that I'm seeing. Grasshoppers, every time I'm going out.
Yep.
And the grasshoppers keep getting bigger and bigger now.
Yeah. And deer and raccoons and skunks. And I've had quite a few people coming in with raccoons nibbling on their corn.
Getting into their corn patch.
We have been fortunate this year. No corn earworms, no raccoons. Yeah. And I put the repellent out right when the corn was really tasseling and ready to go. Not a single worm in my corn. I've not seen one worm, so I'm like super excited. It really did a great job. And my neighbor's been trapping raccoons this summer because they've been getting into his garden, and we haven't had any raccoons too.
So thankfully he's taking care of it.
Yes, thank you, neighbor. Yeah, thank you, neighbor. So
well, if you don't have a neighbor who's doing it for you, best way to keep raccoons out of your corn?
Raccoons are tough, so you can use repellents if you want to do that. We have done the fake corn patch. Sometimes we'll replant the corn, and then on the outside of the corn we'll plant like 2 or 3 more rows that go all the way around the outside of the corn, because the raccoons will come and they'll check and see if the corn's ready, because they know that the corn matures on the outside first before it matures on the inside. And so they'll come and they'll check the outside of the patch, and if the corn's not ready yet, then they'll wait and they'll come back later. But if you plant it later than the other corn, then it's never ripe. And then you harvest all the corn in the middle. That's actually worked pretty well. And then the motion-sensitive sprinklers work great. So like the Scarecrow sprinklers, you set those up. They're motion-sensitive. As soon as like somebody comes through the garden, it turns the sprinkler on, scares everybody. Neighbor's dog, scares the raccoons, scares the deer off, scares you when you forget that it's out there. You walk out there, and all of a sudden it's like sprinkler kick. Yeah, it's like everybody runs. Okay. And so those actually work really well. And then we have some live traps you can actually catch them with. And then depending on where you live, you can either have animal control come and get them, or you can
relocate
them. Yeah,
take
them up in the canyon where it's like nice, and there's a nice little stream for them, and a little food source and stuff. So it works,
the show is winding down. We've only got 2 minutes left. We want to mention again, the cash sale is going on right now at Anderson Seed and Garden, and you can save up to 50% off.
Yeah, lots of trees, lots of shrubs, evergreens. They're all on sale, 40% off. And if you pay with cash, you get an extra 10% off. So it gives you a 50% discount on our remaining trees and shrubs and roses. We've got some roses left as well, too. Flowering shrubs, flowering trees, fruit trees. They've got some really great plants to choose from. And garlic is in. And we've got fall bulbs coming here really soon, too. So probably in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, the fall bulbs are going to start showing up as well. So that's exciting also. Music festival was amazing. So
Thanks to everybody that came down. It was a great time.
That was last weekend. And then we've got Pumpkin Festival coming up the 28th of September. So we're excited for that. Lots of fun things going on. We'll have music at the Lob Plaza. We'll have tons of kids' activities. So if you want to go out on a weekend and just have some fun with your kids, bring them to the Pumpkin Festival because they'll be wowed at the immense size of the pumpkins that we'll have there. And we're going to do a weigh off. So it's like an official, regulated weigh off that we're doing, officially recognized by the Pumpkin Growers Giant Pumpkin Commonwealth, I think is what it's called. And so that's going to be happening. But there's tons of kids activities. There's free movies. There's free music. There's pumpkin decorating. We'll have tons of games and stuff and lots of food and vendors and just it's just a really fun time.
Okay.
Yeah, Pumpkin Festival, September 28th.
Okay.
It's coming up.
So a lot to be looking forward to. Now, we'll be able to take more calls and questions, comments coming up next week on The Garden Show. We've got a lot more to talk about next week as we continue to we're right in the middle of harvest season, and we'll talk about more diseases to watch out for next week. And plus also, make sure if you missed a show or if you want to go back, listen to a part of the show that you may want to hear again, some of Mark's tips, go to kvnutalk.com, check out the podcast library for Garden Guide, and we'll see you back next week here on KVNU.
KVNU Logan.